Grocery is a very competitive business, and every item counts. One significant problem is the loss of items in the bottom of the basket, or BOB loss for short. Finally, there's a solution that works. Lanehawk BOB, potential store losses turned into real-time profits. Lanehawk stops BOB loss by automatically recognizing items under the cart, making the cashier's job easier and faster. Here's how Lanehawk fits into your checkout lanes. First, the Lanehawk lighting and camera unit is installed into the existing lane cabinetry. Second, we build a database of the top bottom of the basket items in your store. We discovered about 100 of those items represent 90% of the products generally found on the bottom of the basket. Finally, we designed an intuitive user interface for the cashiers to easily process the recognizable BOB items. And Lanehawk can be installed in an entire store overnight. Now, years later, thousands of grocery stores are realizing just how effective the Lanehawk BOB system is. We checked in on 2 officers from a typical Lanehawk-equipped retailer and 1 industry expert. First, Joe LaRocca, Senior Asset Protection Advisor with the National Retail Federation.
For 2,000 years, retailers have been selling merchandise and figuring out how to best process customers through the register or at the point of sale system. Some have adopted new technology and continue to leverage technology to push the customers through the checkout, increase accuracy and efficiency, drive sales, and really use technology to harness the power of customer throughput and service and not relying so much on people, which we know we're trying to reduce payroll, we're increasing the amount of responsibility that they have, we're constantly changing the game for cashiers.
No Frills Supermarkets, based in Omaha, Nebraska, is an adopter of the Lanehawk bottom of the basket system. For President and CEO Fred Wittesey, bottom of the basket represents one of his company's most pressing day-to-day problems.
When people ask me about bottom of the basket and where that falls in the priority of issues related to operating a supermarket, it's been a problem ongoing for, I've been in this business for 38 years. And we finally, got to a point where we can address it through systems, i.e. Lanehawk. And it's something that it's so difficult to address unless you have a system like this, because you put a cashier in front of a customer, challenging a customer whether or not that product was rung up or do you want it. And instead of being a security guard, they're supposed to be a cashier. So it really takes a lot of pressure off the cashier. But it's a thing that there never was a good solution for it. And you always know and always knew that it's a huge issue.
Bottom of the basket losses are a trend that we see around the globe. Customers accidentally leave items at the bottom of their basket. Cashiers may not be paying attention. They're busy. The companies are pushing for throughput at the cash register, and there's lots of competing priorities. So items get missed. Customers will look for opportunities and find opportunities where they can get something for free.
When I look at technology and really try and determine whether or not it's a worthwhile investment, it's always a very difficult number to come up with. Because you never know exactly how well you're operating without the technology, so there's some margin of error there, or give and take as to what my true payback will be. When you're talking about bottom of basket, we know we're terrible. There was no solution. When I look at other systems, there's always, different alternatives we could take, so what's a better value? But you're never really sure whether you got your return on investment. There's always that area where I just don't know. That's not the case with bottom of the basket.
There's a number of examples where technology could be used to take the pressure off of our cashiers that have so many priorities. Imagine at 1 a.m. in the morning, 2 football players wheeling through a case of beer under the cart. Cashier might not feel comfortable calling that to their attention. By using technology, she can refer to the screen, call it out. They're of course going to be willing to pay for it as legitimate customers. And now the store wins, the cashier has the burden removed from her shoulders, and technology did its job.
You got to realize that there are people out there that are going to try and get product out, and their intentions were bad, and I wouldn't want to guess what that is. But there's an awful lot of people that just forgot it's down there, and they get out, they got kids with them, and they get out to their car, and it's raining out. The last thing they're going to want to do is come back and say, hey, I forgot the bag of dog food. And that's just human nature. And I'm not saying they're dishonest or trying to get away with stuff. It's just human nature. I'll remember next time. And they forget. It happens. That's life. So our job is to try and keep that from happening.
Bill Brewer is the Information Technology Director for No Frills Supermarkets, responsible for providing solutions that enable store employees to do their job more efficiently while still delivering what the customers expect.
When I observed the Lanehawk application, I found it very intriguing that there was an application out there that could be seamless both from a cashier standpoint and a customer standpoint and all but eliminate bottom of the basket shrink. We spent countless hours collecting data trying to establish whether we had a problem or not. The fact of the matter is even in the best controlled environment, you really don't know what the problem is until you can measure it.
Anytime that we can leverage technology to identify issues at the register and capture sales, potential missed sales opportunities, we're in a better position.
The Lanehawk application is independent of the point of sale system, but does communicate through a message string. That message stream exchanges images of items that have been photographed through the imagery of the cameras mounted on every check stand lane. The point of sale system then evaluates the transaction to see if the UPC code from that image is actually in the transaction. If it's not in the transaction, it displays the actual image that it's taken from the item on the bottom of the basket along with a product description, allowing the cashier to make a decision on whether they need to ring that item up or not. The biggest surprise from the first implementation and testing was how accurate the imaging was, regardless of the position of the items on the bottom of the basket. The second most impactful point was how unobtrusive it was to the customer shopping experience. In most cases, the customers didn't even recognize that the items on the bottom of the basket were being photographed. Once we had completed the evaluation period, we determined as a group that it made sense to rapid start the installation process and get Lanehawk installed in all of our stores as quickly as possible so we could start realizing the true benefit. Any apprehension that I had to how the installation of Lanehawk would affect the stores, the operational procedures within the stores, and the employees and customers was totally dispelled during the first installation. It was seamless, took a matter of a few hours to have 8 lanes installed and configured and operational and tested so that the following morning we could open with Lanehawk and begin training our cashiers.
The Lanehawk technology has been problem-free once you get over the opening hump of just implementation. You're always going to find when you put in any type of technology that the wiring's not quite right, who knows, the outlets aren't there that you thought there were, you know, but the technology itself has always worked very well. Once you build your photo library and that's all up to speed, I mean, it just runs on cruise control.
We incorporated a special training program for our cashiers to retrain them on not only the benefits of Lanehawk, but how to deal with the customer interaction and what the circumstances would be when Lanehawk recognized an item in the check stand lanes. It also delivers weekly what we call risk reports, and those risk reports are actually the accounting of how many items Lanehawk has identified and truly recognized on the bottom of the basket, along with probably the most impactful items are those items that the cashier has chosen to ignore. We use those reports as a training tool and also in some cases as a disciplinary tool when we coach our cashiers on the Lanehawk application and their ability to perform their job as a cashier.
You know, when we first turned on Lanehawk and I started to see the test reports coming in, I was just really flabbergasted at how many times the system recognized product going through that wasn't already rung up. So when you see in an average supermarket, let's say between 200, 300, 400 transactions per week that could have potentially gone out without the product being run up, that's pretty dramatic and really shocked me that it was that much.
We have 18 stores that cross a wide gamut of demographics in all sizes and shapes. We have a variety of check stands in every location. We do not have a rubber stamp blueprint for our company in terms of the check stands. The Lanehawk application and how seamless it was and universal it was to install in all of our check stands, whether they were true straight belt driven check stands or turnstiles type check stands, is remarkable.
We know in operating our business every week pretty much where we should come in with our margins, and you know we track our ad markdowns and our costs and price changes. We have our our systems where we know how much product we moved, et cetera, et cetera. So at the end of the day, when we did our inventories and I got my numbers back, and I'll just use pop as an example, pop margin dollars were 100 basis points higher than what we expected, just in pop. Now, I look at that and I say, just in pop alone, my ROI is probably, worst case, 8 months. Never mind dairy, paper products, pet foods, beer, anything that normally goes on the bottom of the basket. I'm not even counting that. Just in pop alone, we picked up 100 basis points, so pretty dramatic.
I believe the type of technology we're seeing used today, such as in the Lanehawk system, will have wide applications in other parts of retail to identify where sales opportunities exist, how to more efficiently process products at the register, and improve the overall customer experience.
Installing Lanehawk was probably one of the easiest and best decisions I've made as far as installing technology. It's been a great investment.
To learn more about the Lanehawk Bob system, contact us or visit our website.